The Las Vegas Raiders are reportedly zeroing in on Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson as their head coach. But that would be a big mistake by Ben Johnson. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Thursday by Locked On NFL expert, the data queen, Michelle Majuk. On today's episode, we're going to look at every single matchup this weekend and what the primary concern for each team should be. But we are going to start with this recent report that the Las Vegas Raiders are in good standing with Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and are looking to make him their head coach. I'm going to tell you why it's a mistake. Now, before we get into it, do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and Crossover Thursday is always presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app. Use the code Locked On NFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. We're hearing the rumblings, Michelle. The Raiders and Ben Johnson may be a pairing that will happen when the Lions do eventually either win the Super Bowl or leave the playoffs.
But if you're Ben Johnson, why would you ever go to the Raiders? Like, everybody wants you, right? You're the top dog. You get to pick where you want to go. Just how the Raiders are set up right now, they don't have a quarterback. Their skill players are super weak. They don't have a running back. So, like, you're going from the most talented group with the Lions to, like, maybe one of the worst groups in the NFL. And then also just the consistency with these coaches and how quickly they are to fire them. I mean, since 2017, they've had Del Rio, Gruden, McDaniels, and Pierce. Like, you really want to go to a team that's just that quick to fire as well? I don't know why you would ever choose the Raiders if you're Ben Johnson.
Well, I agree with you there from the Ben Johnson angle, but if you're the Raiders, I know exactly why you would choose Ben Johnson. But my guy Q Myers, one of the best in the business, broke it down on Locked On Raiders.
You know, the guys that are leaders in the clubhouse, Ben Johnson is the guy that they're hot and heavy after. I think everyone knows that. I think a lot of people are excited by that. He obviously brings a lot of juice by what he's able to do with the Lions offense there in Detroit. You do have to be patient with him because, again, he's never been a head coach, so it's going to be a learning curve. If they do bring in Ben Johnson, I really hope they bring in a very, very much veteran defensive coordinator like a Robert Saleh or someone like that can do some really good things and really let him focus on the offense while that defensive coordinator handles his business. So Todd Monken's the other guy that they've requested, but it's still TBD on if or when he's going to come in for an interview. There's been no updates on Todd Monken, the current Ravens offensive coordinator, and obviously they have a really big game coming up this upcoming weekend against the Buffalo Bills.
I agree with you 100%, Michelle. I think it would be a dangerous situation. And what's confusing is Ben Johnson declined to become a head coach last year when he could have got a very nice payday to become a head coach. And then he has passed on some other opportunities that have been available. It's so perplexing to me, I can barely speak. For him to do that and then take the Raiders job, which, like you said, no quarterback. It's not like they have some great roster that's ready to take the next step. The ownership has shown incredible instability. And look, I know that Tom Brady's backing things now, and maybe that improves the allure. But we know that Davis hasn't been one of the most cash flow healthy owners. So it's not even like he's going to be an owner that has a ton of money to improve all these different aspects of the organization like Ben Johnson wants. I think that Ben Johnson could be biting off a little bit more than he could chew. If he wants to go to the Raiders, I get that may be a situation where he's given total autonomy and he's given total control and he can build the roster from the ground up and pick his own general manager and all these different things that will be given to him. But when you're a first-year head coach that's never done it before, that all sounds great. until you got to execute it. And now you went from calling plays on Sundays for the most talented offense in the NFL to now running an entire organization that hasn't been a well-run organization for a long time. I think it's just a little bit much. If you had a better fit, so the teams that still need head coach, Jacksonville, Dallas, Chicago, Las Vegas, New Orleans, and then the New York Jets, if you had your pick of those jobs and you're Ben Johnson, which one would you actually want if you were him, or would you turn them down again?
Listen, I mean, the Dallas one is the most enticing, but then there's Jerry Jones that wants to ruin it all, right? And wants to make so many decisions and being like, you're probably going to be driven crazy by him, but you get given a good veteran quarterback in Dak Prescott. You have CeeDee Lamb. You have an early pick to take Ashton Genty. I swear to goodness, Ben Johnson with Ashton Genty and Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb would be so good. You have it that typically wins every year, at least in the regular season. Like, overall, that's the best organization you can go to. But Jerry Jones just kind of ruins it a little bit. Besides that, all the rest are pretty bad organizations. The one bad one I think has the best setup right now would be the Bears. Fix up Caleb Williams after rookie season. You have really good wide receivers. You have a solid enough defensive pieces that you can work around. So I guess if you're going to a bad organization, it would be the Bears. But if you're Ben Johnson, you have, the Cowboys are pretty stable with head coaches too. They give them a long time.
They do.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that might be the best option. I had a different answer, but you might be right on that. The worry with Chicago, I would say, is the same worry with the Raiders when we talk about football. You have Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh. Brother, you're a good coach, Ben Johnson, but I don't know. I don't know about trying to beat those guys. And same thing, you go to the NFC, you got to take on your former team, the Lions, the Packers. And Matt LaFleur has shown he is one of the best coaches in the NFL year in and year out. Kevin O'Connell is an excellent coach as well. Who knows what happens with Minnesota going from here, but those are two tough divisions for me. I know it might sound crazy, but Jacksonville, I think if Jacksonville would get rid of Trent Baalke and let Ben Johnson pick his own general manager, I think he would go there because you have Trevor Lawrence, who is a younger quarterback than Dak Prescott. I think Trevor Lawrence is a decent quarterback. He could get the best out of him. If he made Jared Goff look this good, how much could he get out of Trevor Lawrence? They have some pieces on the offensive line. They have Brian Thomas Jr., a stud all-pro wide receiver as a rookie. On defense, you have Josh Hines-Allen. You have Travon Walker on the edges. They have real pieces at some of the most important positions in the NFL. An owner who is shown to be patient as well. I know that they've flowed through here, but Shad Khan is maybe a little too patient sometimes. So I think Jacksonville, if he was able to get Trent Baalke out of there, but I think Ben Johnson would have gone to Jacksonville if he could have got Trent Baalke out of there, but he can't because Jacksonville made the wrong decision to keep him, and that's perplexing. But that's kind of the fit where I would see Ben Johnson think would be the best. Is there any other fits between head coaching candidates and openings that really pop out to you, though?
A lot. These are bad head coach openings, right? I guess that's why they're looking for a head coach, because they're such a bad team right now. It'll be interesting if the Lions lose both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of the
I
best
think they
fit.
do. Aaron Glenn goes this year for sure. Either Jets or Saints. I believe it.
Yeah, I think the Jets could be an interesting one. I was going to say Saints. I think Saints would be a really good fit for him. Obviously, they're in a kind of they're in that middle stage where they never want to rebuild. And I don't know if I would like that going as a head coach, but I can see him with the Saints. I think Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, I think, are probably out of here this year.
Yeah, I would say so. The only other fit that I would bring up is something that I brought up on yesterday's show. And I think Mike McCarthy would actually be a good fit for the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams. I know that Mike McCarthy is probably the Sam Darnold of NFL coaches. You know what I mean? He's maybe the Kirk Cousins of NFL coaches would be a better appropriate fit. But I think that Mike McCarthy offers stability, professionalism, and an understanding of how to groom a young quarterback. And I think while it may not be the most exciting thing ever to hire Mike McCarthy, for where the Bears are at right now and where Mike McCarthy can take you to, I think that would be best for Caleb Williams' career and the Bears' fortunes going forward. But with that being said, let's get into divisional round week. We're going to look at the best games of the weekend and talk about what concerns might be there for some of the favorites. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, money lines, spreads, over-unders, player props, whatever you want, and so much more. I am looking at some of the lines this week, and right now the Philadelphia Eagles are -6.5, and I got to tell you, I think I like the Eagles at that number. But make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Michelle, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Ben Johnson Raiders connection, our thoughts on that decision by Ben Johnson, if that's ultimately where he goes, and some other fits that we would like. But I want to look at these games here. Before we do, I want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But we're going to move to the best game of the weekend, without a doubt, and it is the Buffalo Bills hosting the Baltimore Ravens. Now, right now, the Ravens are actually the favorites in the game, and I think a lot of that has to do with Lamar Jackson and how special Lamar Jackson is. And recently, Buffalo Bills player talked about the plan to stop Lamar Jackson and how maybe that plan that used to work doesn't quite work so much.
Buffalo Bills star, that being Von Miller. He ended up saying, going against Lamar Jackson, you don't want to rush too conservative, but you don't want to be too reckless at the same time. You've just got to play your game. He's going to make plays, but we've got to be in situations to make plays as well. And cage rushing those guys each and every play is not effective. It's Lamar Jackson. He's going to make plays. You just got to rush, man. You've got to be conscious of where you're rushing and how you're rushing. You have to know where he is. You have to know where the chipper is. But at the end of the day, you just got to go out there and play your game. I don't think Von is wrong with what he said here, because I agree, cage rushing Lamar does not work anymore. We are far past that with Lamar Jackson. In fact, we were never really in that era with Lamar Jackson, where the strategies on how to defend him have evolved. And the reason why I think it's kind of wild, and it's not about what Von said or anything, I just think it's wild because you hear some of the things that Von said in his answer. He said, got to be in situations to make plays. It's Lamar Jackson. He's going to make plays. You don't want to be too conservative, but you don't want to be too reckless. You just got to play your game. You have to go out there and play your game. It just feels like there's no real strategy in terms of one weakness that you can hone in on with Lamar Jackson.
And credit to Lamar. He has improved his game throughout his career to where I remember back to 2019, the Titans, obviously the team that I cover on a daily basis, beat the Baltimore Ravens as underdogs in the playoffs. And one of the ways that they do that is that cage rush mentality. I call it the mush rush on my show. It's basically a conservative rush plan by the edge rushers and the interior defensive line, where you're really just trying to keep a mobile quarterback hemmed inside the pocket and force them to beat you with their arm rather than letting them outside. Michelle, obviously I know you know, but explaining for the viewers at home or listeners at home who maybe aren't as familiar with the term. So in the past, that had been the plan against Lamar Jackson, to just keep him in the pocket, make him beat you with his arm, and you're going to find a way to win, and he'll make some mistakes. Well, that doesn't really happen anymore with Lamar because he's improved so much as a passer, and just as an older player, you get better awareness and understanding of what to expect. I think, honestly, rather than focusing on what to do with Lamar, the Bills really need to squeeze the middle of the field. With Zay Flowers possibly out again in this game, I'm just not scared by any of the outside options outside the numbers from the Baltimore Ravens. I'm more worried about their interior options, whether it be Derrick Henry in the screen game or the run game, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely over the middle. That's what I'm more concerned about. So if I'm the Bills, who are primarily a zone team anyway, I'm going to play a ton of zone. I'm going to use cover 3 and cover 4 to totally clog up the middle of the field, take away any crossers, anything like that. And then when you're playing zone, you can have eyes on the quarterback rather than man when you have your back turned. So I think, Buffalo doesn't really have to do anything special here. They just have to make sure they squeeze that middle away and force the Ravens to go to the outside.
The biggest thing they have to do is, I think the reason why they are projected to beat the Bills right now is because of Derrick Henry. It's not because of Lamar Jackson, because personally, I think Josh Allen's a better quarterback in this matchup. They're both amazing, but Josh Allen is just unstoppable. I think that right now, like in last week's game, Lamar Jackson was so good because they just ran. And it was impossible to know if he was going to hand it off to Derrick Henry or keep it himself. And the Steelers picked wrong, guessed wrong, every single time. It wasn't even the Steelers that guessed wrong. TJ Watt. I mean, I've never seen a guy have so many 50-50 shots and always choose the wrong guy. He tackled so many dudes without a ball. I think it was like 30 tackles with the guy without a ball. It was driving
Not a great end of the year for TJ Watt.
Yeah, if the Bills can figure out how to stop the run just a little bit and not always tackle the wrong guy and just realize that most of the time Lamar's going to keep it. Just please sometime have a guy looking at Lamar. Like, if you just don't play as stupid as the Steelers did on defense, I think like it'll work out better for the Bills. But either way, this should be an amazing game. And it's going to come down to these two superhero quarterbacks and which one makes a bigger play at the end of the day. And it might come down to who has the ball last. And Josh Allen never gets the ball last because this dude is first.
These superhuman quarterbacks in the AFC, it always seems like it's who has the ball last. Michelle, this is one of the last two shows of the week. Who do you think is going to win the game?
I think I want the Bills to win. So am I picking with my heart? I don't know, but I'm going to go with the Bills.
Okay, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills in this one as well. I think with the wide receiver issues for Lamar right now with Zay Flowers out, that Buffalo is going to find a way to limit Derrick Henry enough, and they're not going to have anybody else to beat him to make explosive plays. But moving right along here, we go to the next game that we're excited to discuss, and it is the Detroit Lions against the Washington Commanders. And like I was just saying with the Bills, yes, the Lions the Lions are favorites and the Bills aren't, but they still have to worry about the explosive dual threat ability of the quarterback they're playing against, and that's Jayden Daniels. And my guys from Locked On Lions actually seemed like they were more worried about Jayden Daniels than they were the other options that they could have faced.
I'm pretty enamored with Jayden Daniels. I've got to catch bits and pieces, was able to watch the entire game, and I think he's a very special talent. I think we're, as long as he stays healthy, I think we're going to be talking about the best quarterback in the NFC probably in two or so years. He's not even that far off now, which is kind of wild to say as a rookie, but he not only runs the ball very well, he's a very good passer. And at all levels to him. He's got a beautiful deep ball. I think he sees the field well. I think he still probably needs to slide a little bit more. That was definitely a criticism I had when I watched his college tape, as I thought he took too many hits. I think he still does. Took a pretty big pop there in that first quarter on the sideline against Tampa Bay. But he's tough. And, I think the offense presents a lot of challenges for Detroit, but their defense, although it's been better in the second half of the year for sure, doesn't scare me as much as some of the other NFC options that the Lions could have faced.
So I get that the defense isn't quite as good, but nobody else has the game-breaking ability of Jayden Daniels. Maybe you could put Jalen Hurts in that category in the NFC, but you look at the Lions against mobile quarterbacks throughout this year. They haven't played a lot of mobile quarterbacks this year on their schedule. They gave up 45 yards to Kyler Murray on the ground. I think it was 60 and 2 touchdowns to Josh Allen. Gave up 60 yards on the ground to Anthony Richardson. And the Bills beat them. The Cardinals only lost by 7, and they whooped the Colts, of course. But I just think that the mobile quarterback is something that Detroit hasn't had to game plan against a lot. And the only other mobile quarterback that's been even close to Jayden Daniels was Josh Allen, and he beat him 48-42, I think was the final score. So I just think Jayden Daniels could go nuts here and give the Lions something that they haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah, the Lions did allow the 4th most rushing yards of quarterbacks this year. So that's going to be something that's hard for them. Also, their secondary is destroyed right now, right? I mean, everyone's hurt on this defense. So Jayden Daniels could get it done with his arms or legs. He was the first rookie quarterback to ever lead his team in passing yards and rushing yards in a playoff win. He was also the first rookie quarterback to ever have multiple passing touchdowns in a road playoff win. first one to have 200 plus passing yards in a road playoff win. He's also the first rookie quarterback to win on the road when his opponent scored 20 or more points. I have so many Jayden Daniels notes, but I want to say one more, right? So Jayden Daniels has won 13 games this season, including the playoffs. Only 3 other quarterbacks have won at least 13 games as a rookie, including the playoffs. It was Joe Flacco, Dak Prescott, and Ben Roethlisberger. Each of those guys played with a top 5 scoring defense that year, like allowed the 5th fewest points per game. Not. Yeah, Jayden Daniels had the 18th ranked scoring defense he was playing with.
Wow.
Ben had number 1, Joe Flacco had number 3, and Dak Prescott had number 5. So what he's been doing is insane, and I'm so proud of him. I love watching him. It's going to be so hard to choose between the Lions or Commanders in this game. I want both to win.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm ultimately gonna take the Lions. I'm not gonna get cute here. Same. I love getting cute with my picks, and that's how we got last weekend's picks, which we're not talking about it. But it's a new week. We're moving on. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the Lions in this one. But hey, a little teaser, adding 6 points to the 9.5 that the Commanders are getting. We'll talk our bets tomorrow with the mastermind Ross Jackson, but I'll go Lions.
Yeah, I'm going Lions as well. They're just too good. Their offense is too good.
Right. Hopefully Jayden Daniels makes it a fun game, though. That's what I want more than anything this weekend is just some really good football games. And we got 2 more games to discuss on the slate. Kansas City, I think they're more vulnerable than people understand. Do want to let you guys know, though, that today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? Definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them down, and it's basically like having a personal assistant for my finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending, helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals that you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features was that subscription tracker. Again, I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore. I've already saved a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, Michelle, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. We talked about the recent coaching news. We'll see what happens with the hires here soon. Liam Cohen is interviewing with the Jaguars. We know there's interest in other realms, the Saints, Aaron Glenn, Jets, Aaron Glenn, Mike McCarthy, Bears. There's so much going on. It's crazy. We've only had one head coach hired so far. It's wild to me. It's wild. But the news, I'm sure, will come quick and it'll come fast and it'll be on us before we even know it. But we got 2 more games to talk about here. We talked about the Bills and the Ravens. We talked about the Lions and Commanders. But let's start here with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. I get that this game seems like an easy slam dunk Chiefs win. But I am worried about one advantage that the Texans have that is significant over the Chiefs. And it's the Texans' defensive line against the Chiefs' offensive line and what that could create problem-wise for Kansas City. And my guys over at Locked On Chiefs, I knocked on the door and they opened it.
To me, that this has been the key to the Chiefs' season all year. Take care of the ball. They come out, they are rusty, they are not taking care of the ball. And I'm not talking about just Patrick and not making some throws that he shouldn't. I'm talking about wide receivers and running backs holding the ball up, high and tight and making sure it can't get punched out. Returners holding the ball high and tight. Don't give them short fields. Don't give them the opportunity to be in this game, because the reality is that this should not be a close game. This should be a 2-score game. We'll get into the predictions later in the week, but this should be a 2-score game. This Chiefs team is that much better than the Texans, and they have the ability to put up 30, 35 points if they come out and they play well on offense. But that's the key. The only way you play well on offense is you hold on to the ball. And if they don't hold on to the ball, that becomes a problem. So if you turn the ball over and you lose the turnover margin by 2 or 3, you can easily lose this game.
We can talk about returners and runners holding onto the ball, but what creates turnovers most often? Pass, rush, pressure, where you rush a quarterback and he makes a bad throw into an interception, which we've seen Mahomes do a ton this year, quite honestly, or you get to the quarterback, you cause some fumbles, you cause some sacks, and you get your turnovers that way. I think turnovers can be the difference in this game, and the reason that I think that could actually happen is because Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Will Anderson, the Chiefs' offensive line, particularly that left tackle position, and even right tackle with Jawan Taylor, have been susceptible throughout the season. That interior three is really good, but the tackle spots are weaknesses. The strengths of the Texans are their defensive ends. I think that is an area of the game where the Texans could really flip this thing, and I like the Texans plus 8.5 in this matchup. I'll take the Chiefs, but I like the Texans to make it close.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely did surprise us in the wild card round. Definitely thought the Chargers were going to beat them up, but this game's not at home in Kansas City. We just saw this game play out. I mean, a few weeks ago, right? They just played in Kansas City. They got beat by 8 points. The offensive line held up just fine, or at least I don't remember exactly how the offensive line did, but Patrick Mahomes only took 1 sack in the game, and it wasn't from Anderson or Danielle Hunter, so they were held to no sacks. They didn't have any turnovers. I think the Chiefs will be just fine. My biggest worry is that the Texans offense won't be able to do anything against this Chiefs defense. And I just think the Chiefs win with these.
All right. Well, that'll be an interesting one to watch. I don't, in that last matchup, I don't think Will Anderson played. I think he might have been injured.
Play, but maybe he got injured early in the game because he had a couple tackles in the game from what I see, but I don't know if he played the full game.
Yeah, there was a point in time during the season where he was a little banged up. I don't know how far. I mean, we're talking about months ago at this point now with how far along we have gotten. But moving right along to the last game that we're going to discuss from the slate, and it's the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Los Angeles Rams. And you look at the Eagles in this game, and while I've been a big proponent of the Rams, I actually think the Eagles have a good chance to win this one handily. And my guy Louie from Locked On Eagles agrees.
So we have another rematch for the Eagles in the divisional round. This time it's the Los Angeles Rams coming to the Link. The last time the Eagles played the Rams on Sunday Night Football in the regular season, Saquon Barkley had over 300 yards from scrimmage. The Eagles should still be heavy favorites in this game. I think the Rams' strengths, their pass rush, their receivers, the Eagles have the corners to neutralize that. They have the offensive line to neutralize it. It's really a strength-on-strength matchup. The only thing I'm concerned about, I don't even want to say concerned, but more hesitant compared to like why I wanted Minnesota, is Matt Stafford's still one of the best quarterbacks in football. He can still have, while it's fewer and far between, inconsistent, he can still have some monster performances. That's what I was kind of hesitant about last week with Jordan Love in Green Bay. I wasn't really concerned about much else. But overall, the Rams have been extremely inconsistent this year, and I think the Eagles should still be heavy favorites. I wanted Minnesota, but Vikings-Rams, you know, I think the rosters are pretty similar. So either way, I was happy with the draw.
I actually have been talking about those things all week. The Rams wide receivers, well, the Eagles have the cornerbacks and the pass defense to take care of that. The Rams pass rush, well, the Eagles have maybe the best offensive line in the NFL, or at least top 3. So for me, and then you look at the Rams run defense. The Rams were a bottom 11 run defense. And what do the Eagles want to do? They want to run it with Saquon. So to me, this is just a bad matchup for the Los Angeles Rams. And although I've been high on them for the last 6 weeks to 2 months, even before they were in the playoffs, I was like, I think the Rams make it in the playoffs and can make a run and can win a playoff game. They've done that, but now they're getting up against a team that I think is a terrible matchup for them.
Yeah, and in the cold in Philadelphia, in a hostile environment. I don't think the Rams have much of a shot. I think they can keep it closer than the Vikings would, but at the same time, like the Rams got Sam Darnold, right? They got Sam Darnold in the wild card round, and we could say the Vikings went 14-3. Well, Sam Darnold went back to being Sam Darnold the last 2 weeks, and it was like it was so easy for them to stop them. The Eagles have won 13 of the last 14 games since their week 5 bye, and the only game they lost was the game that Jalen Hurts got concussed early in. They had an early lead by a good margin, and then Kenny Pickett had to come in and lost that lead for them real fast. But the Eagles kind of remind me of the Chiefs last year, where it's like they have no right to be winning all of these games. Like they do not look this good, but their defense is playing lights out, and their offense is getting it done enough. And Saquon Barkley is just a beast, so I think they get it done in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And again, like I said earlier, we'll talk about my thoughts on the spreads and stuff tomorrow, and we'll dive into that more. But I love the Eagles -6.5 in this game. I think it could be ugly. I really do, just because of the way these teams are set up. But hey, Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, better quarterback, better head coach, you could probably say. And in the NFL, that always gives you at least a fighting chance. But I think I agree with you. We're both going Eagles in this one. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed, and check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. That's going to do it for me today, your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, as I am always on Thursdays with Michelle Majuk, the Data Queen. We tell you every episode, stay safe out there.
Bye, y'all.